Imagine being a child, standing before your classmates, only to have your teacher laugh at your truth. Imagine being ridiculed, not because you lied, but because no one believed someone like you could have a father in power. This is the story of a boy who was mocked for telling the truth, until the very man they doubted walked through the door, and everything changed. The classroom was buzzing with noise that morning, the way it always did before lessons began. Students laughed, whispered, and traded jokes. But in the corner, a quiet boy named Marcus sat, hands folded, eyes fixed on the floor. He wasn't the type to draw attention to himself. Yet today, he would say something that would shake the entire room and expose the prejudice hidden behind his teacher's smile. When Mrs. Collins, a woman with a reputation for being strict but funny, began her lesson, she asked the students to share what their parents did for work. One by one, the children spoke. "My mom's a nurse," said one. "My dad owns a store," another added. Laughter and approval followed each answer. But when it was Marcus's turn, he spoke softly. "My dad works at the Pentagon." The room went silent. Then, a ripple of laughter spread among the students. Mrs. Collins smirked, tilted her head, and said with a mocking tone, "Oh, really, Marcus? The Pentagon? Next you'll tell us he's the president." The class erupted, children laughing, some pointing at him, others whispering. Marcus's face burned red with embarrassment. His voice shook. "I'm not lying. My dad really works at the Pentagon." But Mrs. Collins only doubled down, chuckling in front of everyone. "Marcus, we all know honesty is important. There's no need to make up fairy tales to impress people." That single sentence crushed him. The boy sank lower into his chair. What Mrs. Collins didn't know was that Marcus's father wasn't just working at the Pentagon. He was a senior intelligence officer, a man who had dedicated his life to national security, and a father who had taught his son the value of humility and truth. The day went on, but Marcus carried the sting of humiliation. At recess, classmates teased him relentlessly. "Hey, Pentagon boy," one shouted. Another sneered, "What's your dad, a secret agent?" Each word dug deeper, turning his pride into shame. When Marcus went home that evening, his father noticed. "What happened at school, son?" he asked. At first, Marcus hesitated, but finally, through tears, he told the story. How his teacher mocked him, how his classmates laughed, how nobody believed him. His father's face hardened. He was a man of discipline, not easily angered. But hearing that his son had been humiliated because of prejudice and disbelief struck a nerve. "Tomorrow," he said firmly, "I'm walking you to school." The next morning, the students were already in their seats when Marcus walked in, this time with his father beside him. His presence was commanding. Tall, dressed in his crisp military uniform, medals pinned to his chest, he carried himself with dignity and strength. Whispers filled the room. Mrs. Collins froze. Marcus's father stepped forward, introducing himself calmly. "Good morning. My name is Colonel David Harris. I serve at the Pentagon, and I am Marcus's father." Silence, the kind that makes hearts pound. Mrs. Collins' face turned pale. The class stared, jaws hanging open. The same children who had mocked Marcus now sat stunned, realizing the truth. Colonel Harris didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His words carried weight. "I heard that my son was mocked in this classroom for telling the truth. Let me remind you, every child deserves respect, no matter their skin color, no matter their background. My work may be at the Pentagon, but my most important work is being a father. And I will not stand by while my son or any child is humiliated." If you believe no child should ever be mocked for who their parents are, pause and hit that like button now. Let's spread this message far and wide. But the story didn't end there, because what followed was a wave of change that spread beyond one classroom. The school principal was called in. Parents began talking. The incident reached the school board, and soon questions were raised. How often did this happen? How many children had been silenced, shamed, or mocked for telling their truths just because someone didn't believe them? Mrs. Collins found herself under investigation. She apologized publicly, but it was too late. Trust had been broken. The community demanded accountability. And Marcus, once the quiet boy in the corner, became the center of a movement for respect. Colonel Harris used the incident as a teaching moment. He spoke at school assemblies about respect, discipline, and the danger of prejudice. He shared his story as a black man who had faced barriers his whole life, yet rose to serve at one of the most important institutions in the nation. Marcus began to hold his head higher. His father's courage had not only defended him, but also given him pride in who he was. Stories like this happen more often than we think. If you want more powerful real-life stories that expose injustice, make sure you subscribe right now so you never miss one. But behind the applause and lessons, a deeper truth lingered. How quickly people dismiss children, how easily society doubts the powerless, and how prejudice can turn a simple moment into lasting trauma. The teacher thought it was a harmless joke, but for Marcus, it was a wound he would remember for years. And for his father, it was a reminder that respect must be demanded, not begged for. The story builds into a documentary-style arc. Interviews with other students who remembered that day, parents speaking about the incident's impact, experts weighing in on racial bias in classrooms, clips of Colonel Harris's speeches in schools inspiring young children. This wasn't just a family story anymore. It was a national conversation. Do you think this father handled the situation perfectly? Or should he have gone further? Drop your opinion in the comments. Your voice matters. By the end of the documentary, Marcus himself speaks, now older, looking back. His voice steady, filled with wisdom. I'll never forget that day. Not because of the pain, but because of what it taught me. I learned that the truth will always stand, no matter who doubts it. And I learned that sometimes all it takes is one person to defend you, to change your life forever. The screen fades to black, but the message lingers. Respect every child. Believe in their words, because one moment of ridicule can last a lifetime. If this story touched you, don't just scroll away. Share this video with someone today. Let's make sure no child is ever silenced, mocked, or shamed again.